right, I am really excited to have you here today, and welcome to the video series for Brew Better Than a Barista. Today I'm going to be walking you through my favorite technique for the V60 pour over. What I like about this method is that it's reliable, produces a very clean cup, and is really easy to adjust for sweetness or acidity or whatever you need in order to dial in a new coffee. In fact, I use this method every single time I get a new coffee. All right, so before we get into the actual brewing, the most important thing for you to do with any brew method is to appreciate it, to enjoy it, to get into it. Easiest way to do that? Smell your coffee. Now you do want to smell it at every stage of the way, before you grind, after you grind, during your brew, and before you drink it. So once you have the coffee that you're going to be brewing for the day, go ahead and pour any amount into the grinder. And the recipe that we're doing today is 20 grams of coffee in and 260 grams of water in. So for you math nerds out there, that ends up being a 1:13 ratio. So I'm going to go ahead and grind the coffee. And of course, smell it. It smells phenomenal. All right, and if you have one of these, this is not necessary, but it's very useful. It shakes out the fines of your coffee so that you get a more even, consistent extraction. Now the size of your grind should be roughly twice that of table salt. You can take a look at that right there. Next thing to do is go ahead and set up your pour over station. So you want your scale down at the bottom. You want a carafe or a mug under that, your V60 cup on top of that. You want to have your boiled water ready to go in a gooseneck kettle and your paper filter. So for a V60 paper filter, you're going to want to crease the side there. Give it a nice crisp line. Open it up, give it a light pinch. Don't crease it on these edges here, and just kind of toss it in. Go ahead and rinse your filter. And this is to get rid of the paper taste, but also to make sure that the cone is in the right shape, as well as preheat all of the equipment. For pour over, one of the most notorious things to mess up the evenness of your extraction is thermal loss. So making sure that everything is preheated beforehand will do a lot to help you get an even extraction. Once that's done, go ahead and dump your water, turn on your scale, make sure it's tared out to 0. Then you can take your coffee, and we're dumping in 20 grams. Pick up your V60 cup, kind of tap it lightly until the bed of coffee is nice and level. All right, we're going to tear out the scale one more time. And this is my favorite part of every brew, the bloom. For the bloom, we're going to pour in roughly 1:1. So we put in 20 grams of coffee, we're going to put in 20 grams of water. Now the goal here is to get everything wet. You want to let all of that coffee release any of the gases that are still inside of it and prep it for when you actually brew. So make sure to get everything wet. If you go over 1:1, totally fine. Go ahead and start your timer after you start the bloom. And this is a great time to get a whiff of that coffee. And you can already smell how it smells different than when it is freshly ground. That's the extraction process beginning. All right, after about 20 to 30 seconds, we're going to start the agitate phase. This is a relatively fast pour. You're trying to hit 150 grams of water in within the next 30 seconds. And this is to agitate the bed of coffee, get it all mixed up there, and then allow it to drift down to the bottom of the brewer evenly. Make sure to pour in concentric circles. And once you hit 150 grams, go ahead and pause briefly. And now we're entering the final stage of the pour. This is a slower pour of water. Again, concentric circles. The goal here is just to maintain that water level. And then once you hit 260 grams, go ahead and stop and let the water draw down. The drawdown should finish at around 2 to 2.5 minutes. Of course, now is also a wonderful time to get a big old whiff. Now, if your drawdown is going slower or faster than 2.5 minutes, you can adjust the size of your grind in order to change the speed through which the water extracts. And perfect. This one is at 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Last step, of course, is to aerate your coffee. Swirl it around a little bit. Pour yourself a glass. One last whiff. And try it. The last thing of note is that when you're trying your coffee, for the first time especially, make sure to let it cool down and try it over the next 10 minutes or so. The flavors will change as the temperature decreases, and you may find some interesting flavor notes at different temperatures. All right, so there you have it. That was my approach to the V60 pour-over method. Hopefully that was easy enough to follow along with. It should be very replicable, and I hope that you get some better coffee out of it. If you have any other questions, or if you want to learn some nuances to the different V60 pour-over methods that exist out there, feel free to reach out to me at wilson@tezpresso.com. I answer all my emails, and I love geeking out about coffee, so let's do it. Enjoy your coffee.